The Secret of the Ancient Mirror. Ellie's Time-Travelling Adventure. Chapter 1. The Discovery of the Ancient Mirror. On a sunny summer afternoon, Ellie arrived at her grandfather's house, ready to spend a relaxing weekend. She always loved exploring this old and mysterious home, where every corner seemed to hold a story. Her grandfather's attic was her favourite place, filled with dusty memories and traces of history. As Ellie stepped into the attic, sunlight poured through the small window, casting a warm glow. She navigated through dusty wooden boxes and antique furniture, feeling an invisible pull. Suddenly, her gaze was drawn to a mirror covered in a thick layer of dust. The mirror had an elegant frame, intricately carved with patterns. Despite its neglect, it still exuded an air of mystery. Ellie gently wiped away the dust from the mirror's surface, her heart brimming with curiosity. The mirror seemed to shimmer slightly, as if beckoning her closer. Unable to resist, she reached out to touch it and felt a warm energy instantly spread through her body. At that moment, the mirror's surface began to ripple, like water being softly tapped. "What is this?" Ellie exclaimed, a wave of anxiety and excitement rising within her. The reflection in the mirror gradually became blurry, and suddenly, Ellie felt herself being drawn in by an irresistible force. Swiftly pulled into the mirror, she closed her eyes, feeling a dizzying sensation, as if travelling through a tunnel of time. When Ellie opened her eyes again, she found herself standing in a completely different place. Surrounding her was a bustling marketplace, vibrant fabrics shimmering in the sunlight, and the air was filled with the scents of fresh bread and spices. She looked around and saw people dressed in ancient attire, busy moving about, with laughter and vendors' calls intermingling. "Where am I?" Ellie murmured in surprise. She realized she had crossed into a moment in history. A mix of excitement and fear surged within her. She sensed this adventure would change her life forever. Just then, a flamboyantly dressed knight walked by, casting a curious glance at Ellie, the unexpected visitor. Ellie felt a flutter in her chest, knowing she was in a whole new world, waiting for her to explore and uncover more secrets. Chapter 2. Time Travel. Ellie's heart raced, and the bustling noise around her seemed distant and muffled. She took in her surroundings, overwhelmed by the sights before her. Just moments ago, she'd been in her grandfather's attic, and now she stood in medieval Europe. Sunlight streamed through the tents of the marketplace, casting a golden glow that illuminated every corner. The air was filled with a mix of aromas, bread, meat, and spices that made her stomach rumble with hunger. "Have I really travelled through time?" Ellie whispered to herself, hardly able to believe her eyes. She tried to calm herself and began to survey the area, seeking something familiar. People wore colourful garments, some busy trading, others performing in the streets, creating a lively and vibrant scene. In the centre of the marketplace, Ellie noticed an old woman showcasing her handmade crafts. The exquisite jewellery and woven accessories caught her attention. Ellie slowly approached, eager to ask about them, only to realise she couldn't communicate in a language she recognised. This world seemed to have its own rules, and the language barrier left her feeling helpless. Just then, a sharp shout caught her attention. "Watch out!" A young boy dashed past her, holding a shimmering object. Ellie's eyes widened with curiosity. "What is that?" She quickly followed the boy through the crowd until he stopped in front of a young knight. The knight, clad in armour with a sword at his side, exuded an air of authority. The boy handed the glowing object to the knight, and Ellie leaned in closer, seeing that it was an ancient gem, sparkling enchantingly. "Did you bring this back from the Forbidden Land?" The knight's deep voice questioned, his gaze fixated on the gem, revealing a complex expression. "Yes, my lord, I found it in the forest." The boy's face was alight with excitement, his eyes gleaming with admiration. A surge of curiosity flooded Ellie. "Forbidden Land? What is that?" She realised the knight and the boy were discussing something significant that might be tied to this world's history. Gathering her courage, she stepped forward, intending to interject in their conversation. Just as she opened her mouth, the knight turned to her, his gaze locking onto Ellie. In that moment, she felt an invisible force emanating from his eyes. as if he could see through her very soul. "Where are you from?" the knight asked, a hint of confusion and caution in his voice. Ellie was momentarily speechless, unsure of how to respond. Taking a deep breath, she silently thought, "I come from a faraway place." She realized she needed to adapt to this unfamiliar environment and find a way to communicate effectively. I'm a traveller," she finally managed to say, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to learn everything about this place." A complex expression crossed the knight's face, as if he were contemplating her words. At that delicate moment, a sudden uproar erupted from the far end of the marketplace, as if a significant event were unfolding. People hurriedly rushed toward the source of the commotion, whispers and shouts echoing all around. Ellie's heart raced, a mix of tension and curiosity swirling within her. She felt as though this world was unveiling a new layer of mystery, and she was being drawn into it. The knight abruptly turned his head, his gaze sharpening with intensity. "Follow me," he said, his voice low but filled with urgency, leaving no time for Ellie to hesitate. He swiftly strode deeper into the marketplace, his movements radiating an unspoken sense of danger. A surge of unprecedented excitement and anxiety welled up within Ellie, as if an unknown force was guiding her toward an irreversible adventure. She hurried to keep pace with the knight, realizing she was standing at a crossroads of fate, and the journey ahead was filled with enigmas and unpredictable peril. Chapter 3: The Bustling Marketplace. Ellie followed the knight closely, weaving through the bustling marketplace, feeling the rich tapestry of history envelop her. Every corner was alive with vibrant energy, as if time itself had crystallized in this moment. She saw vendors selling colorful fabrics, fragrant spices, and an array of delicious foods. Customers haggled enthusiastically, laughter and chatter creating a lively atmosphere. "Is this what life in the Middle Ages is like?" Ellie thought, her eyes wide as she took in the sights. Unable to resist, she paused at a spice stall where an amiable old woman in a brown robe smiled warmly, recommending various spices. "Try this, it's fresh saffron." The woman gently pinched a few golden threads between her fingers, showcasing them to Ellie. Intrigued, Ellie leaned closer and asked, "What makes it special?" "It enhances the flavour of food and can even cure minor ailments." The woman's voice carried a hint of wisdom. Ellie felt captivated by every detail of this place, as if each person harboured a unique story. Just as she was lost in the aromatic spices, the knight's voice cut through her thoughts. "Ellie, stay close. There's more fascinating things ahead." Nodding, she followed him to another part of the market, where a crowd had gathered, buzzing with excitement. Curiosity propelled her forward to see what was happening. To her delight, a minstrel was performing, reciting ancient legends in a deep, resonant voice that captivated the audience. Various instruments hung behind him, drawing in listeners who stood rapt in attention. Ellie felt a strong sense of belonging swell within her as she absorbed the enchanting atmosphere. "This culture is beautiful!" Ellie exclaimed, unable to contain her admiration. The knight smiled softly, appearing pleased by her appreciation. "Our land is rich with traditions and history, waiting for you to explore." As time passed, Ellie began to shake off her initial nervousness, immersing herself in the lively marketplace. She and the knight sampled local delicacies and learned about the various goods and the lives of the people. He patiently answered her questions, enveloping her in warmth and friendliness. "Our region has many legendary tales. Would you like to hear one?" the knight asked, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. "Absolutely!" Ellie's eyes lit up with excitement. She knew that behind every story lay a deep history, and these tales were the very purpose of her journey. The knight smiled gently and began to recount tales of ancient warriors and magic. With each word, Ellie felt a comforting warmth envelop her heart. This ancient and mysterious world seemed eager for her to uncover more of its secrets. Just then, a piercing scream broke through the marketplace's cacophony, interrupting their conversation. Ellie's heart raced as she turned toward the source of the sound. In the crowd, a woman appeared frantic, clutching an object that shimmered with an unusual glow. What happened? The knight asked urgently, a flicker of concern in his eyes. Ellie felt a strong intuition that the object was somehow connected to the ancient mirror through which she had crossed. Her heart raced, as if the gears of fate were silently turning, beckoning her to seek out deeper truths. What secrets lay hidden within that ancient mirror? Chapter 4. The Ring of Courage and Wisdom. Amid the lively atmosphere of the market, Ellie followed the knight down a winding alley and arrived at a hidden shop. The shop's exterior was ancient, with a beautifully carved wooden sign hanging by the door, reading "Mystic Artifacts." Curiosity surged within Ellie, and she could hardly wait to explore inside. Pushing open the heavy wooden door, a fragrant scent greeted her. A mix of old scrolls and rare gems, the shop's interior was dazzling, with antiques and trinkets adorning the walls. Ellie's attention was immediately drawn to a ring emitting a soft glow. "This is the legendary Ring of Courage and Wisdom," the knight whispered reverently from behind her. "The wearer gains fearless courage and endless wisdom, able to find solutions even in the gravest crises." Ellie's heart skipped a beat. She felt an undeniable connection between the ring and her mission. She stepped closer to examine it. The silver band was set with a radiant sapphire as though it held a hidden power. "May I try it on?" Ellie asked, her voice filled with eagerness. "But know this, the ring's power is not freely given. Only those truly in need of courage and wisdom can command it," the knight cautioned solemnly. Ellie nodded, her resolve growing. She reached for the ring, and as her fingers touched it, she heard a faint whisper in her ear. "Move forward bravely, and wisdom will guide you." As she slipped the ring onto her finger, a wave of warmth surrounded her. She felt her fear dissolve, replaced by a surge of fearless courage. "I can feel its power," Ellie exclaimed, her face glowing with newfound confidence. The knight said with a knowing smile, as if he could see the potential in her future. They continued to explore the shop, discovering many ancient scrolls and mysterious items. The knight shared the stories behind each one. Just then, the door burst open, and a man clad in ornate armor stormed in, his face filled with urgency. "Hurry! I need help! The village is under attack by a dark sorcerer, and we must act at once." His words were laced with urgency. Ellie's heart tightened. She felt the ring pulse gently on her finger, as if calling her to action. "We can help!" She stepped forward without hesitation, her voice firm and resolute. The knight immediately followed suit. "We will join you, defeat the sorcerer, and protect the village." The man nodded gratefully and led them out of the shop toward the village, now on the brink of disaster. As they travelled, Ellie's heart swelled with unease, but the ring's power gave her support and courage. When they arrived at the village, the sight shocked Ellie. Dark clouds covered the sky, and villagers ran in fear. The air was thick with despair and dread. "We must find the sorcerer's hideout," the knight said decisively. Ellie took a deep breath, feeling the ring's power radiate. She knew this was her moment to demonstrate both courage and wisdom. "I have an idea," she said suddenly. "We can set a trap to lure the sorcerer out." "How?" the knight asked. "If we create the illusion of a weak and vulnerable village, the sorcerer will be eager to show himself," Ellie explained, her thoughts becoming clearer as she quickly laid out her plan. They sprang into action, using the surroundings to create the appearance of a defenseless village. Sure enough, it wasn't long before the dark sorcerer emerged, grinning wickedly as he approached them. Ellie felt the ring glow warmly on her hand once more. She knew the time had come to confront him. "Now is the time to show courage and wisdom," she thought, stepping forward, ready to fight alongside the knight. Chapter 5. Meeting Arthur. As the dark sorcerer appeared, Ellie's heart raced. She took a deep breath, feeling the ring on her finger warm slightly, as if encouraging her to face the challenges ahead. The knight stood firm beside her, his gaze resolute, ready to fight alongside her. The sorcerer smirked maliciously, scanning the village around him with a sneer of disdain. "You ignorant mortals think you can stop me?" His voice was deep and menacing, dark energies swirling around him. Ellie's heart was filled with fear, but she knew she couldn't back down now. "We won't let you harm anyone here," she replied firmly, her voice small but filled with strength. The sorcerer turned his gaze toward Ellie, seemingly astonished by her courage. "Oh? A little girl dares to challenge me?" He laughed coldly, waving his staff as dark energies shot toward Ellie and the knight. "Quick, move!" the knight shouted, pulling Ellie out of the way. They dodged just in time, but the dark energy struck a large tree, causing it to wither instantly, sending chills down Ellie's spine. She realized this sorcerer was no ordinary foe. "We must unite and harness the power of the ring," the knight urged. They quickly strategized their counterattack, a surge of strength rising within Ellie. "I can try to use the ring's power to fight back," Ellie shouted, gripping the ring tightly, feeling a warm energy coursing through her. "Just focus. Courage and wisdom will guide you," the knight encouraged. As the sorcerer attacked again, Ellie closed her eyes, concentrating. She felt the ring's energy flow through her fingertips and silently chanted, "Courage and wisdom, grant me strength." Suddenly, the ring emitted a brilliant light, forming a protective barrier that repelled the sorcerer's dark magic. Ellie opened her eyes and saw the light pushing back the dark energy. "Great job," the knight cheered. "Keep using the ring's power." Ellie concentrated again, channeling the light into her hands, releasing a powerful wave of energy aimed at the sorcerer. He felt the pressure and began to retreat, but quickly reacted, swinging his staff to unleash more dark energy. "We must work together," the knight shouted. "Let's combine our strength." Ellie fought alongside the knight, focusing all their power against the sorcerer. Just then, Ellie noticed others from the village gathering together, forming a powerful collective will. "Everyone, together," Ellie called out. "We can defeat him." The villagers responded to her call, joining their strength to form a unified force. The sorcerer glanced at this scene, a flicker of fear crossing his eyes. "You insignificant fools! How could you possibly defeat me?" he roared. Yet, as Ellie and the knight's power continued to grow, his dark energy began to wane. Finally, Ellie felt the ring's light merge with the villagers' belief, releasing a final blow that struck the sorcerer's staff. He let out a desperate scream before dissipating into a cloud of black mist. The village sky gradually cleared, and the villagers cheered, celebrating their victory. Ellie felt a warm sense of pride. The ring's power had not only given her courage, but also taught her the strength of unity. "We did it!" The knight turned, smiling at Ellie. "You've shown extraordinary courage and wisdom." At that moment, a tall young man stepped forward, King Arthur of the castle. "Thank you for your help. The village has been saved," he said, his gaze steady and reassuring. "I'm Ellie," she replied with a smile. "I'm glad to help you. Your courage will become a new legend in our kingdom," Arthur said, his eyes filled with admiration. Ellie felt a warm glow in her heart, realizing she was no longer just an ordinary girl, but a part of this kingdom. She understood that her adventure was only just beginning, and this ring would guide her toward even more unknown journeys. Chapter 6. A Shared Adventure. The morning sun streamed through the castle windows, casting light on Ellie's face as she slowly opened her eyes, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. Today, she would set out with King Arthur and the knights to confront the dark sorcerer in his lair. At the long table, the knights gathered to discuss their plans. King Arthur sat at the head, his expression serious. "We cannot underestimate the sorcerer's power. His magic is formidable, and we must proceed with caution." Ellie listened intently, her heart filled with anticipation. Although she was still a girl, she knew she had a role to play in fighting for the kingdom. Stepping forward bravely, she declared, "I want to join you and help find the sorcerer's weaknesses." The knights exchanged glances, and then an older knight spoke up. "Ellie, are you really ready for this? It's not a simple adventure." "I'm willing to face any challenge," Ellie replied firmly, her eyes shining with courage. King Arthur smiled slightly, sensing her determination. "Very well, we will support you. Today, we gather our strength and head to the sorcerer's lair." The moment of departure arrived. The knights donned their armour, and Ellie put on a set of lightweight armour provided by Arthur. Though it was a bit large, she felt a strong sense of belonging. She mounted a magnificent steed, surrounded by the tall knights, Feeling as if she were part of a legendary adventure, the knights led the way, with Ellie following closely. Along the journey, she admired the beautiful fields, lush forests, and the cheerful laughter of villagers. She felt the vibrancy of these sights, her heart brimming with excitement for the adventure ahead. However, as they drew nearer to the sorcerer's lair, a tense atmosphere began to envelop the air. The trees grew twisted, and the ground was covered in weeds. Ellie felt a nagging sense of unease, but pushed through it, reminding herself, "I must persevere." "We're almost there," Arthur's voice came from ahead. "Proceed with caution." Finally, they reached a secluded valley where the sorcerer's lair stood. A dark fortress looming over desolate land, emanating an eerie aura. Ellie's heart raced, and she took a deep breath, striving to calm her nerves. "Here, we need to formulate a plan," Arthur said, pointing to the fortress layout as he unfolded a map among the knights. "We must split up to avoid detection by the sorcerer. Ellie, you will come with me and a few knights, while the rest keep watch on the perimeter." Ellie nodded, filled with anticipation and tension. "I will do my best." Under Arthur's leadership, the team split into groups, stealthily approaching the sorcerer's lair. Ellie, along with Arthur, Knights Ian and Layla, gradually neared the fortress's entrance. She felt the ring on her finger warm slightly, as if conveying strength. Just as they neared the fortress, the dark sorcerer appeared before them, sneering coldly. "Little warriors, do you truly believe you can defeat me?" Ellie felt a tightness in her chest, but she did not waver. Clenching the ring, she recalled her responsibility in this historical moment. "I won't back down. We will end your reign of darkness." The sorcerer laughed maliciously, dark energy flickering in his hand as he prepared to cast a spell. Ellie sensed the pressure in the air and felt a surge of courage. "Arthur, together. Yes, follow my lead." Arthur's voice rang out, steady and powerful. They joined forces and launched their attack, Ellie channeling the ring's power into her sword, which shone with brilliant light. The sorcerer was momentarily stunned by their sudden onslaught, but he quickly retaliated, unleashing powerful dark magic that swirled through the air. "Quick! Focus your strength," Arthur commanded, as the knights united in a fierce assault against the sorcerer. A wave of fearless courage surged within Ellie. She knew this was a pivotal moment in history. With a loud crash, the sorcerer's dark energy shattered under their combined attack, and blinding light illuminated the entire valley. "We can do this!" Ellie shouted, feeling the unity of their strength flow between them. After an intense battle, the sorcerer was finally driven back, his dark aura dissipating as sunlight broke through the valley once more. Ellie and the knights were filled with the joy of victory. Though exhausted, they had succeeded. "Ellie, you did wonderfully," Arthur said, turning to her with a smile. "Your courage and wisdom helped us win this battle." A proud smile spread across Ellie's face. She realized this was not just an adventure, but an opportunity for growth and change. Fighting alongside Arthur and the knights filled her heart with faith and hope. "This is just the beginning. More challenges await us in the future," Ellie said resolutely. Chapter 7. The Coming Battle. In the aftermath of the battle, sunlight poured over Ellie and the knights, reflecting their hard-won victory. Yet, Ellie's heart was not at peace. She sensed an ominous presence, as if a greater crisis lurked in the shadows. "We cannot let our guard down," King Arthur said, his brow furrowed and his gaze resolute. "The sorcerer's magic won't disappear easily. He may strike back again." The knights nodded, the atmosphere growing tense. They quickly returned to the castle, deciding to set up a defense there in case of an emergency. Ellie was filled with doubt, but she knew she had to stand alongside them. Days passed without any sign of the sorcerer, and Ellie began to think she had been mistaken. However, one night, a wild wind rose, thunder rumbled, and the sky seemed engulfed in darkness. At that moment, the sorcerer's figure re-emerged, accompanied by dense black fog that suffocated everyone. "Did you think you could easily defeat me?" The sorcerer's voice echoed through the air, dripping with derision. "This time, I won't let you escape." The knights quickly assembled, preparing for the impending attack. Ellie gripped her sword tightly, her heartbeat quickening. She recalled the ring of courage and wisdom on her finger, deciding to confront the challenge head-on. "We must unite," Ellie shouted. "Everyone must give their all if we are to defeat him." As the sorcerer began chanting his spells, dark energy poured from the sky, and the knights swiftly took defensive positions. The battle between light and dark erupted instantly, sparks flying, and the air filled with the cries of combat. "I will counter with the power of light." King Arthur raised his sword high, radiant light emanating from him, as if to dispel all darkness. Seeing the knights' resolve and courage, Ellie felt an immense strength surge within her. In the heat of battle, the sorcerer suddenly turned his gaze on Ellie, a sinister smile creeping across his face. "You little girl, do you think you can change anything? Your power is nothing compared to mine." Ellie felt a jolt of fear, but she did not back down. She understood that the sorcerer's taunts were meant to shake her resolve. "I won't give up," she replied firmly, ready to harness the ring's power. As the battle raged on, the sorcerer unleashed powerful dark spells, a chilling cold filling the air. The knights fought valiantly, but they struggled to break through the sorcerer's defenses, and the tide of battle began to turn against them. "We need to find his weakness." Ellie's voice rang out amidst the chaos as she fought to keep calm. At that moment, she noticed a slight hesitation in the sorcerer's movements while casting his spells. In that instant, she recalled a story her grandfather had told her. True strength comes from the courage within. "Arthur," Ellie called out, "we need to focus our strength together and create a powerful light." "Understood." Arthur's voice boomed like thunder, and the knights began to concentrate their power, forming a circle. Ellie stepped into the centre, gripping the ring tightly and silently affirming her belief and courage. As their power coalesced, the air around them grew warm and bright. Ellie felt the energy of the ring flow through her fingertips, the light intensifying into a brilliant beam. "Give it everything you've got." Ellie felt an unwavering strength ignite within her, as if time had stopped in that moment. She poured all her courage and hope into that beam of light, directing it toward the sorcerer. The clash between darkness and light reached its peak. The sorcerer gazed in shock at the oncoming light, desperately trying to defend himself, but it was futile. The beam surged forward like a torrent, instantly engulfing the sorcerer's figure. "Don't give up!" Ellie's voice rang out like a clarion call, inspiring everyone around her. With the final blow, the dark power was completely shattered, and the sorcerer let out a desperate scream, vanishing into smoke in the air. As the sorcerer disappeared, the surrounding darkness began to lift, and sunlight once again bathed the land. The knights cheered, and Ellie felt an unprecedented sense of relief and joy. "We have won!" Arthur embraced Ellie, his eyes shining with pride. "It was your courage that brought us this victory." Ellie smiled softly, warmth flooding her heart. She knew this was not just a victory, but a journey of growth. After countless trials and tribulations, she finally understood the true meaning of courage. Chapter 8. Farewells and Legacy. After the thrilling battle, Ellie stood beside King Arthur and the knights, her heart heavy with reluctance. Sunlight bathed them in warmth, as if blessing their victory. Yet she knew she was about to return to reality, leaving behind this historic moment. "Ellie, where will you go?" King Arthur's voice carried concern, his gaze firm yet gentle. "I don't know when I will return," Ellie said, choking back tears. "But I will always remember this experience." Arthur smiled faintly, as if he understood her feelings. "No matter where you are, courage and dreams will always accompany you. Pass our story on and share it with more people." Ellie nodded, feeling a surge of warmth. She realized that although time and space would separate them, their stories and beliefs would transcend the ages, continuing to shine in history. "Thank you, King Arthur. You've taught me so much." Ellie took a deep breath, fighting back her tears. "I will record everything so that more people know the power of courage and unity. Wherever you are, keep this courage in your heart. Arthur's voice brimmed with encouragement as he slightly turned, gesturing for Ellie to move forward. Ellie slowly approached the ancient mirror, its surface shimmering softly. She glanced back at the friendships and trust she had just formed, filled with warmth. The knights and King Arthur shone brightly in the sunlight, etched into her heart. "Goodbye, my friends," Ellie said softly, her voice filled with determination and gratitude. As her hand lightly touched the mirror's surface, light engulfed her instantly. In that moment, she felt a tremendous force pulling her back to reality. Time seemed to stand still as everything around her blurred rapidly. When Ellie opened her eyes again, she found herself back in her grandfather's attic. The ancient mirror stood quietly in the corner, seemingly waiting for the next story to begin. Sunlight streamed through the window as if to tell her that a new adventure was about to start. Filled with passion and motivation, Ellie picked up a pen and began to document her medieval adventures in her journal, detailing every moment and emotion. She wrote about King Arthur's courage, the knights' unity, and the beliefs she had learned during challenging times. As she wrote, Ellie felt that courage returning to her heart. She understood that sharing these stories was not just about preserving history, but also about affirming her inner strength. She hoped that more people could draw strength from them, choosing to bravely move forward regardless of the challenges they faced. Weeks later, Ellie organized a small story-sharing event, inviting friends and neighbors. She vividly recounted her time-traveling experience, sharing King Arthur's tale and the knights' courage and faith. Everyone listened with rapt attention, their eyes sparkling with excitement and anticipation. Courage is not just about facing fear, it's about staying true to your dreams and beliefs. Ellie's voice echoed in the room, filled with power. After the sharing session, many felt inspired and expressed a desire to join her in sharing more stories and passing on this courage. Ellie's heart swelled with joy, knowing her efforts were not in vain. She was creating a new legacy. In that moment, Ellie realized that although her journey had ended, her story would continue to inspire generations. She would sow the seeds of courage and dreams in every corner, allowing these tales to flow eternally between history and reality. From that day forward, Ellie was no longer just an ordinary girl. She became a bearer of courage. Wherever she went, she shared the stories of King Arthur and the knights, letting their spirit take root and flourish in the hearts of every listener. The end.